In our previous episode, we detailed the ascension of Viserys I to the throne and the earliest period of his reign, which was, for better or worse, intertwined with the travails of his brother, the rogue prince Daemon Targaryen. More importantly, the reign of Viserys led to the establishment of two distinct factions at court, the Blacks and the Greens, with two matriarchal presences at the head of each faction, in the form of Rhaenyra Targaryen and Alicent Hightower. Although the dance had not yet begun, all it would take in the coming years was the strike of a match, and the Seven Kingdoms would erupt in torrents of dragonfire. In this episode, we will detail the continued build-up of pressure within the House of the Dragon, akin to the 14 Flames prior to the Doom. The tourney of 111 AC proved to be a watershed moment in the history of House Targaryen, and for once the blame could not be laid at the feet of the rogue Prince Daemon Targaryen. The line in the sand had been drawn, and the factions of Blacks and Greens had emerged, starting a cold war of sorts that would define the remainder of King Viserys I's reign. During the tourney itself, the Blacks would emerge triumphant as Sir Criston Cole, wearing the favour of Princess Rhaenyra, unhorsed two of the Queen's favoured champions. In the meantime, however, there was good news of a sort, as Viserys had reconciled with his brother Daemon, with the latter offering up his stepstone crown after arriving unexpectedly on the back of Caraxes. Daemon would last 6 months in King's Landing, and even resumed his role on the Small Council for a time, yet character is destiny, as we have oft been told, and Daemon's fate was never that of meek subservience. Daemon once again took up with his old companions amongst the Goldcloaks and frequented the Street of Silk. His relationship with Queen Alicent and her children was also notably cold, a stark contrast to that of his interactions with Princess Rhaenyra, spending enough time with her niece to draw suspicions. Regardless of the reason, Daemon was soon exiled from King's Landing, with several sources presenting wildly differing reasoning for Viserys' decision. Grand Maester Runciter, in his works on the period, merely states that the brothers quarrelled, and Daemon left the capital to resume his warring upon the Stepstones. Alternatively, Septon Eustace and Mushroom's account differs in the extreme. Eustace held that Daemon took his niece's maidenhead, and the pair were caught in bed by Sir Aric Cargill of the Kingsguard, and were brought before their ruler. He refused to allow them to wed, and instead banished his brother once more, making both parties swear to never repeat what had happened to the wider populace. Mushroom's account, written in his testimony, offers a much more salacious story, as is often the case in his recounting. The dwarf claimed that the princess sought the affection of Sir Criston Cole, who rejected her advances due to his knightly vows. Daemon then took advantage of the situation by offering to teach her the methods required to pleasure a man, although the author claims that her maidenhead remained intact. Whatever happened, King Viserys was beyond furious, and even considered heeding the advice of his current hand, Lord Strong, who insisted that Daemon should be executed. Only the counsel of Septon Eustace swayed the king from outright kinslaying. Thus Daemon was banished and returned to his war in the Stepstones, a war which seemed to be fittingly pointless at this stage in the conflict due to the evidently barren landscape of the region. Back in King's Landing in the year 112 AC, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Harold Westerling, died, and in his place, the nascent Sir Criston Cole took up the mantle. For 2 years, an aura of calm descended upon King's Landing. However, this changed in 113 AC, when Rhaenyra turned 16 and took up her seat on Dragonstone. The issue of who she should marry had long plagued the decision-makers within the kingdom. However, the king and small council were united in the belief that Laena Velaryon offered the best prospect for myriad reasons. One such reason which went against the young man, however, was that in his 19 years he had never once shown an interest in women, and instead surrounded himself with handsome squires of a similar age. Rhaenyra knew of all this and more. As a result, she could not be cajoled into the union no matter what her father did, that is until the issue of succession was raised. As Viserys ensured Rhaenyra what had been done could be undone just as quickly. Septon Eustace recounts that when her inheritance was threatened, she begged for the forgiveness of her father at his very feet, whereas Mushroom details that she spat in her father's face, although both chroniclers agree that in the end she consented to the union. The accounts differ further from here, as Septon Eustace states that Sir Criston Cole slipped into Rhaenyra's bedchamber that night, confessing his love for her and telling her that a ship lay waiting in the harbour for them, only to be rejected out of hand. Mushroom's account has Rhaenyra entering Sir Criston's bedchamber, only for this knightly man of honour to refuse her once more. Embarrassed by this rejection, she stormed from his chambers, only to chance upon Sir Harwin Strong, known more widely as Breakbones, who did not share Sir Criston's chivalry, and gladly took her maidenhead, only for Mushroom to chance upon them the next morning. Irrespective of the true account, the affection borne by the Lord Commander to the princess turned to bitterness and scorn from that day forth, which was to have far-reaching consequences in what lay ahead. A mere smattering of days later, Rhaenyra took a ship to Driftmark with her handmaids, Mushroom, and her new champion Breakbones. In 114 AC, the princess and Sir Laena were wed, and during the celebratory tourney, Sir Cole took the favour of Queen Alicent, leaving Breakbones with a broken collarbone and a shattered elbow in the contest. His prowess with the Morning Star was further evidenced when he beat Sir Joffrey Lonmouth, who bore Sir Laena's favour into the mud. Such was the fury Cole brought to the event that Sir Joffrey would never recover, and instead died 6 days later. The vast majority of those present were left unhappy with what had transpired. Not the Queen, however, who soon after asked Sir Cole to become her personal protector. Cole accepted this offer without hesitation. Sir Laena quickly returned to Driftmark, raising rumours that the marriage between him and Rhaenyra had never been consummated. His role at the heir apparent's right-hand side was taken up by Breakbones, whilst the prince took a new favourite, a knight of his household named Sir Carl Corrie. Laena would attend events where it was expected of him, but Septon Eustace claims that he shared the bed of his wife no more than a dozen times. In the dying days of that year, it was announced that Rhaenyra was with child, a child that once born displayed no true resemblance to the Velaryons, instead presenting strong genes. Laena's wish to name the child Joffrey was overruled by his father Corlys, who instead decided upon the traditional Velaryon name of Jacaerys, which was shortened to Jace to those who knew him best. Just as the court began to celebrate the birth of Jacaerys, Alicent went into labour, giving birth to a third son, Daemon, who unlike Jacaerys displayed quintessentially Targaryen features. In order to avoid further enmity, Viserys had the two boys raised by the same wet nurse, hoping that, if raised as milk brothers, no further disdain would arise between them. This was unfortunately naught more than a token gesture, as at this stage events were in motion that even the most powerful man in Westeros could not prevent. To add to the headaches hurriedly assaulting the king, in 115 AC, Rhea Royce, wife to Daemon Targaryen, was thrown from a horse and died. A raven was sent to Daemon, who immediately left his war in the Stepstones under the pretense of laying his wife to rest, when in fact he intended to claim her seat of Runestone as his own. In this regard he failed miserably, causing him to retreat to Driftmark, where he fell in love with Laena Velaryon, a woman who was already betrothed. Years earlier, Laena had been set to marry the son of the Sea Lord of Braavos. However, when the father died suddenly, the son proved himself to be little more than a privileged wastrel who decimated the family coffers before appearing as a disgraced exile upon Driftmark. Daemon mocked the Braavosi to such a degree that he had to call for a duel to defend his honour. Dark Sister bit deep, and in a fortnight the rogue prince was married once more. However, Daemon was no fool, and was aware of the fact his brother would be less than pleased with the coupling. So he took his new bride with him first to Pentos, then Old Valentis, Qohor and Norvos, before returning once more to Pentos. Once there, Laena revealed she was pregnant, and would not fly again until her condition had been resolved. As a result, the pair settled there for a time. Back in Westeros, in the final days of 115 AC, Rhaenyra gave birth to a second son, named Lucerys, or Luke for short, who once again displayed strong tendencies. This was not helped by the fact that both Sir Harwin and Sir Laena were present at Rhaenyra's bedside as she was giving birth. Viserys was delighted by his new grandson, who was a large and gregarious child. However, the Queen was less impressed, as she stated in passing to Laena, "Do keep trying. Sooner or later, you may get one who looks like you." The rivalry between Greens and Blacks grew to the extent that neither Rhaenyra nor Alicent could bear one another's company, and instead deigned to remain within the Red Keep and Dragonstone respectively. In 116 AC, Laena gave birth to Daemon's first true-born children, a pair of twins named Baela and Rhaena. Unfortunately, these girls were small and sickly, despite displaying quintessentially Targaryen traits. When word was sent to Viserys of their birth, both the Hand and Small Council argued against sending the royal blessing. The king could not be swayed though, as he still dearly loved his brother, stating, "Daemon is a father now. He will have changed." As a result, the two brothers were reconciled once more. In 117 AC, Rhaenyra gave forth another child, Joffrey, who, like his two older brothers, resembled the princess's champion more than her husband. This once more sparked a great many rumours at court and further beyond. However, it was never doubted at this point that Viserys intended for his daughter to succeed him on the Iron Throne. Each of the children was given a dragon's egg for their cradle, and rumours abounded that if the eggs did not hatch, they were guaranteed to be bastards. Despite this, each of the three eggs gave forth a dragon. The dragons were named Vermax, Arrax, and Taraxes respectively, and Septon Eustace further states that at this point in our tale, Viserys took the young Jace upon his lap at court, stating, "One day this will be your seat, lad." Although the realm seemed at peace, our chronicler, Archmaester Gyldain, goes so far as to state, "The sins of the fathers are oft visited on the sons, wise men have said, and so it is for the sins of the mother as well." The children of both Rhaenyra and Alicent would display their own enmity towards one another, displaying a rivalry far beyond their years, as the latter's children harboured great resentment for their stolen birthright, the Iron Throne. Such it was that the newest generation could not help themselves but naturally align with their respective factions of Greens and Blacks, making what was to come a tragic formality in a rivalry that started before they had even taken their first gasping breaths. With this, the lines in the sand had been drawn, and unbeknownst to all involved, the fate of the kingdoms hung upon a knife's edge, and to lean either way meant the outbreak of brutal and devastating civil war. In the next few episodes, we will discuss the final days of peace in Westeros, and the outbreak of the Dance of Dragons proper. But in the meantime, we're planning to cover the battles of many other fantasy, sci-fi, and space opera universes, so make sure you have subscribed and pressed the bell button. Please consider liking and sharing as it helps immensely, and don't forget to comment. We will try to read and respond to every comment, as we want to know what you think about this video and which videos you hope to see in the future. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.